Good evening. Tonight we have quite a bit of material to cover, and here we're going to have some of the things that I talk about in my book. I'm not going to talk about the treatment of COVID and so forth. If you want some ideas about that, go to my ResearchGate page and find this document. It's free. You can download it for free. It's a whole guide of what to do to keep your immunity to the top working. And I wrote this guide together with two other experts. And just look for it there. Optimize Your Immune System is called. It's totally free. You can download it and share it and learn from it about it. Also, as we have been talking about the people that participate of this seminar, by the end, we're going to be giving them a copy of the book I wrote, Pandemic Busters. So a lot of the material we're going to cover today, lots of it, it's there in that book. So later on, you can go ahead and read more. Also, this book is like an infographic the whole way. So it's nice, attractive, lots of graphics and illustrations to show you evidence-based things that you need to be putting in practice to have a good immune system. The book has been translated into 15 languages as we speak. In fact, the Czech Republic just sent me a message this morning that the book is ready now in the Czech language. The book is also on Amazon, so you can actually order it. They do print on demand, so you order it physically. They don't ship it all the way from America. They print it here actually in Australia and send it to you. It's also available in Audible, so you can listen to the video, to the book, or it's available on Kindle if you like the digital version. They can read on a tablet or on a computer, whatever you may want to read. And I'm going to be citing some of my Twitter account. My Twitter account is that Eddie RDMD. So let us talk about this pandemic. Some people ask, how come they don't stop this pandemic? You know, well, stopping this pandemic is like trying to stop this fish. It's very simple. Even if you close the border, the thing is going to come. There's no question about it, due to how infectious this thing is. So what we're going to talk about today, we're going to call it the emerging infectious diseases. Emerging infectious diseases, we can classify these infectious diseases into two groups. One group are diseases that we thought we had under control. And suddenly, the numbers started to creep up. An example of this would be tuberculosis. You know, some years ago, we found the treatment for tuberculosis. And then suddenly, tuberculosis, combination of people with AIDS, plus people not taking correctly the treatment, caused this bacteria to mutate and started becoming resistant to the treatment we were giving. And we're starting to see more and more of these cases coming up. That's one group, you know, reemergence of diseases previously controlled. The second group are diseases that are completely new. We never heard about them ever, and suddenly we start seeing them. An example of one of those diseases that are new is a disease that we heard about it for the very first time in 1981. When was 1981? When Ronald Reagan was the president of America. So in your head, you know about when that happened. The Public Health Organism of America puts out on a regular basis a report by the name of the MMWR. You can actually subscribe to that report. You'll get it on your email. So they give you, the latest information of new diseases or new findings that they find. So in 1981, in June 1st, this is a copy of that report, they started reporting that there was a small group of homosexual males in Los Angeles that was having a very strange type of pneumonia. If you're a doctor, you see pneumonia on a regular basis. But the type of pneumonia that they were having in this report was a very, very strange pneumonia. Did you know that this is the very first time we heard of something by the name of AIDS? It's a new disease. Before 1981, nobody had ever heard about AIDS, a new emerging infectious disease. Now, from that humble origin, just a few people, today, 36 million people have died of AIDS worldwide. In fact, this is more than the population of Australia, isn't it? Tremendous numbers. Now, sexual promiscuity, illegal, IV drug use has fired this problem worldwide, but where did it come from in the first place? We're going to be talking about that tonight. And this is not the only new disease. There's many more new diseases. SARS, number 2, also known as COVID-19, Ebola, Marburg disease, West Nile, monkeypox, tomato flu, and all these new diseases, where are they coming from? We're going to find a lot of these answers tonight. So we have a tool by the name of medical anthropology. Medical anthropology studies diseases and tries to find the origin of these problems, trying to understand where they came from in the first place. Let's see a few common diseases, where they came from. Here's a few examples. One of them is the smallpox. In the old days, used to affect quite a bit of people. Today, because of public health things such as vaccines, this number of these problems has decreased dramatically. Well, this one came from close contact of humans with camels. Camels had what is called the camel pox, and the close proximity with humans caused this disease to jump into humans. It mutated into its human version, and then we started spreading it out ourselves. Another one, whooping cough, also known as pertussis. Very rare problem in Australia due to vaccination. Due to vaccination, we were able to control this problem. Worldwide, you still see some cases of this. This is a cough that is very infectious. The person coughs and coughs and coughs and coughs to the point that they get purple of so much coughing. Where did it come from? It came from pigs. Close contact of humans with pigs. To me, it's very interesting that even in the Bible they mention this. It says the pig, don't eat it, don't even touch it, says there. It's a lot of wisdom there. Did you know that on the second trip of Christopher Columbus brought for the first time pigs to the continent of America? Pigs were not in the continent of America. And he caused a swine flu epidemic there, killing by the millions of people. If he would have kept those pigs in in Europe, it would have saved quite the headache out of those Indian people in America. And not only that, many diseases the Europeans brought to the American continent. We'll be talking about that in a minute, why that happened. And it created tremendous devastation for the people in the Americas. In fact, about 50 years later, after Christopher Columbus came for the first time, Hernan Cortez came, and by the time Cortez came, half of the population in Mexico had perished as a result of infectious diseases that the Europeans brought to the American continent. And that's the reason why small group of these soldiers were able to conquer tremendous empires down in the continent of America. In fact, by the time that we arrive at 1618, the population in Mexico had decreased from 18 million to 1.6 million people. Tremendous devastation that infectious diseases cause in the Americas. And we'll come back to that, what happened there in a minute. Another disease, where it came from, typhoid fever, came from chickens. And this typhoid lives naturally in the gut of the chicken. And today, through industrial farming, as they take those chickens, they put them on those hooks, they put them through liquid and so forth, man, this thing is spreading all over the place. In fact, most of the eggs in its surface, they have typhoid, okay? Next one, measles. This one came from close contact of cows and sheep, very close by to humans. That's how that disease was able to climb into humans. In fact, more than 200 million people have died as a result of this disease. Another of the diseases that we have been able to control quite a bit due to vaccinations. Also, ducks brought us influenza. Now think a little bit about it. Do you think those ducks that are flying there in the sky are the ones that infected us? No, isn't it? I had to have the duck here in my face so the duck, could cough or sneeze, and then it could infect me, okay? I had to domesticate this creature in order for that process to take place. And that's how influenza came into humans. And leprosy came from water buffalo. This animal, very common in many parts of Asia. They use them for farming and so forth. But that's how that leprosy jumped from the animal to humans. And in some parts of America's armadillos. So there is this book called Guns, Germs, and Steel, very interesting book by a New York Times bestseller. And Jared Diamond explains how the arrival of the Europeans wiped out 95% of the natives in the continent of America. Now, the interesting thing is that the disease was flowing from the Europeans to the Americans and not the other way around, except for a very few exceptions. One of them was syphilis. The Americans gave syphilis to the whole world. Okay? In fact, when he arrived for the first time in Europe, they were blaming each other, the European countries. The French said, no, it was the Italians, the one that infected us. And the Italian says, no, it was the Portuguese, and so forth. And the reality it was the Spanish. Okay? That came via the Spanish through all Europe. And why didn't have any plagues in the American continent? Why the plagues were in Europe? See, the reason why is because in the continent of America, the natives didn't do animal husbandry. Okay? See, cows came from Europe to the American continent. Pigs came from Europe to the American continent. Horses, pigs, sheep, goats, those animals were not in the American continent. And sure, some of these natives did eat some meat once in a while, but see, the bison that they went and hunted, the rest of them kept on going. They didn't take those animals and put them in a fence and kept them like that, while the Europeans did that. In his chapter, Jared Diamond calls it the little gift of livestock. So, because there was no pigs, there was no pertussis. There was no chickens, there was no typhoid fever, and so forth. While if you check the history of Europe, you will see that pandemics were something that the Europeans would get hit on a regular basis over and over and over. Here are some examples of those pandemics. The plague of Justinian. 10,000 people were dying every day. Black Death. Half the population of Europe was wiped out secondary to that plague. The Italian plague, 1/3 of the population of Venice disappeared. And every single one of these plagues, you can actually trace them to contact with animals. That's where the majority of this came from. Now, the story started changing once we reached the 20th century with the advent of public health interventions, such as the principles of hygiene. They started teaching people the importance of washing your hands and taking showers, making sure your food is clean and so forth. The advent of vaccinations that decreased very much the amount of disease, and also the advent of antibiotics. Many diseases that in the past we couldn't control, with the use of antibiotics, we started to be able to stop many of these diseases. In fact, by the time we reached the 1960s, we thought that we had complete control over infectious diseases. In fact, one of the top experts in the world, this virologist, McFarlane, he said, it is almost to write of something that has passed into history, talking about infectious diseases. He didn't come to 2020 to see what happens with infectious diseases, isn't it? How it did not go into history. And something very fascinating started happening. See, the amount of infectious diseases started to decrease dramatically worldwide, but something happened around the 1950s, the 1960s, and there was a resurgence of infectious diseases, specifically emerging infectious diseases. Some sociologists say that there's a relationship between the loss of morality in our society and some of these diseases that we are seeing. For example, the amount of sexually transmitted diseases among young people, 10 to 14%, tremendous increase, 400% more from the past to today. Or the amount of divorces, or the amount of child abuse, up 2,300% more today compared to the 1950s and 60s. Or the amount of corruption worldwide, or the amount of illegal drug usage worldwide, or the amount of violent crimes up 1,000%, and so forth. So by the time we reach 1975, we had 30 new diseases that nobody had ever heard about them before. Completely new emerging infectious diseases. And this is not something that is one here and there. When you check on the map, look at how much emerging infectious diseases we see all over the place. And organizations like the World Health Organization are very worried about this due to its tremendous increase worldwide. In fact, this infectious disease book, it says, depending on the present policies and actions, this situation will lead to a catastrophic storm of microbial threats. So those new diseases, the majority of them, you can trace them to contact with animals. Let me give you some examples. A new group of infectious diseases from South America in Argentina, you can trace them to a policy of the country of Argentina. Argentina realized that many people were asking for more animal protein. So as a national policy, what they did, they started cutting down their virgin forests and started putting animals there instead. It was very good business. They made a lot of money, but the exposure of those animals and humans with some of the diseases that were naturally found in those forests created a series of new diseases. As other countries in South America started copying the same policy, you see an emergence of totally new diseases that before the 1970s was just not there. Another example of this is from Africa. In Africa, you have this new group of diseases by the name of viral hemorrhagic fevers. Just by the name, do they sound nice? No, they are not nice, okay? You start literally bleeding from any orifice in your body. The famous Ebola is part of this group of diseases. And not only Ebola, you have diseases like the Rift Valley fever, yellow fever, the Lassa, Marburg. Marburg is a nasty disease. In fact, I was just putting a tweet there recently. Look at this one. This just came literally from last month. In Ghana, how they're having an emergence of this Marburg disease. In humans, this Marburg virus has an average fatality rate of what? 50%. I'm telling you, these are really, really nasty diseases. Where did they came from? Here's a story. See, business people in Africa realized that Africa had really good quality wood in their forest. So they organized to send groups of workers deep into those forests to start cutting that wood and be able to make a profit out of it. Now, imagine that you're one of those workers that are going there very deep in that forest. What are you going to eat? I mean, you can have a lunch with you, but after a week and two, you start to run out of food. There's no, plantations next to it. They can go and, cut some corn or something to eat. There's no business people there. They can go and negotiate and get some food. What are you going to eat there deep inside that forest? What these people started doing, they started killing some of those animals deep in those forests, and they started eating what are called bush meat. In fact, it has been documented 26 different types of monkeys that they have been eating, from gorillas to chimpanzees and so forth. And the sad part, these people went in the cities and told the people of the cities, hey, I tried such and such. It tastes really good. You should try it. So then the people in the cities also started eating that type of meat. And many, if not all of those diseases, were naturally in the body of those monkeys, and uncooked meat or an exchange of blood made that disease to jump into humans, and that's how they started that chain. That's how Ebola came, that's how Marburg disease came, and so forth. In fact, this is something very well documented, how AIDS came like that. This is Journal Science, one of the top journals in the world. Direct exposure, talking about how AIDS came into humans, direct exposure to animal blood and secretions as a result of hunting, butchering, or other activities such as consumption of uncooked contaminated meat. That's how the virus of the AIDS virus jump into humans. And sadly, this disease has not reached its peak, especially areas like southern Asia, southern Africa. Tremendous amounts of numbers of people carrying this AIDS, and that's causing tremendous devastation worldwide. Now, if we go up to Asia, we have these wet markets, another perfect place for new diseases to come. In fact, just think a little bit about it. You have all these different species of animals that you never see those animals together in nature. And you're putting them together, man, that is not a good recipe at all. And sadly, these wet markets continue to operate today, not only in one country, but multiple countries. Let us visit one of these wet markets so you can see what they have there and how this is not going to end up very well. So there you have some bats. So what they do, they cut their wings. They do certain recipes with the wings, and they do certain recipes with the other part of the bat. And then just next door, in the next table, look at this guy chopping this boa type of creature there, And more bats in the other table. And then you continue walking around there. There are rats there. There are cats there. There are pigs there. They have all kinds of creatures there in these wet markets. And not only that, they also have things such as dogs and cats and all kinds of animals. These are dogs there, you know, that they're gonna eat. And even these are the cats, the next cats they're gonna be eating. And under it, you know, they have the cage with the rest of the cats. So as you can see, this is not going to end up very well, isn't it? And this is just a source of all kinds of diseases. Now, you may say, well, we don't have wet markets. That's great that you guys don't have wet markets. But this type of operations, this is where the next pandemic is coming from. This is not the way you treat chickens. You have, by the thousands in one place, this is the perfect place for new diseases. Just think about it. Number one, there's no sunlight there to come and disinfect things. There's no fresh air, you know, to remove all those things that are being generated inside those cages. There is, you're feeding these creatures all kinds of artificial foods, and you're putting antibiotics in all of them. There are so many of them together that they are under constant stress. And guess what happens when you're under constant stress? Your immunity goes down, the perfect place for diseases to mutate. We know what the next pandemic is. It's going to be an avian flu, or a combination of avian flu with swine flu. And this is like this game that people that like to waste their money that go to Las Vegas play. You know, you pull this lever and then it gives you some numbers. And then if you get 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, boom, you win the thing. Okay, that's what's happening. The virus is mutating, and one of these days, we're going to hit the 7777, and I am telling you, this is not going to be pretty. This is going to be a tremendous infectious disease, and it's going to have a very high mortality rate. They need to stop this type of behaviors because we are going to get hit really nasty from them. Another source of disease is this creature. It's called the civet cat. They raise this animal because they eat it, but they also make the world's most expensive coffee with this creature. What they do, they feed this creature coffee beans, and with the poopy of this thing, they make coffee. I don't know if they ever heard about peppermint tea or something else, you know. You do not need to be drinking this stuff. And they pay a pretty penny out of it. And supposedly it has a fantastic taste because the anus of this animal gives them supposedly a very nice taste, you know. So people pay a lot of money out of that. Did you know that this creature was the source of what is called SARS-1? Now, COVID-19, the name of the virus for COVID-19 is called SARS-2. And the reason why it's called SARS-2 is because there was a SARS-1. And this creature was the source of the SARS-1. Here's the Lancet, one of the top journals in the world, talking about this civet cat. A culinary choice in southern China led to a fatal infection in Hong Kong and subsequently 8,000 cases of SARS and almost 1,000 deaths. This happened, if you want to know when in your head what happened, when Barack Obama was the president of Mexico. That's when, of America. This was in when SARS #1 happened. And there's some other nasty diseases coming up. Here's another one. It's called Streptococcus Suez. Not too far from Australia, this thing is hitting. Streptococcus Suez, a really nasty disease that likes to go to your nervous system, and it causes blindness on most of the people that get this disease. You can get meningitis, and it is a tremendously dangerous disease. Where did this disease come from? Here it is in their official report. Stress due to poor housing conditions such as overcrowding and inadequate ventilation, this is in pigs, are risk factors for the development of this clinical apparent disease. So you have all these animals that you're putting them together in one place and causes that immunosuppression and the release of this nasty disease. In fact, in many places, this is the way that they raise pigs. Why are they so mean with these pigs and they don't even let them move around? Because if the pigs move around, they build muscle, and that makes their meat hard. And who wants hard meat? You know, everybody wants soft meat. So they put these poor pigs inside these cages. The poor pig cannot even lay down comfortably because people want their soft meat. Another nasty disease is called the Nepa Virus. Tremendously deadly disease. Between 40 to 70% of the people that get this disease are going to die. In fact, the authorities are very worried that somebody can take this virus as bioterrorism. You know, you get this virus and you spread it out all over the place. Man, a lot of people are going to die because of that. Where did this disease come from? Here's the official report. Without these largely intensively managed pig farms in Malaysia, it would have been extremely difficult for this Nepa virus to emerge. Again, we are changing the way we treat animals, and we're getting ourselves in really big trouble as a result of that. An interesting study that came out that was telling us what things we can do to improve our survival in this turbulent world was this study. It cost more than $1 million to make this study a reality. And what they did, they were analyzing the bugs, the microbes that live in our gut. They were comparing the people that eat these animals that were, subject to antibiotics. Does that have any effect on the microbes that live in us? Look at the results. The results are very clear. When you compare people that eat those animals, that were exposed to antibiotics, when the people eat that flesh, the antibiotic resistance passes into the humans. Did you know that 70% of all the antibiotics worldwide are given to humans, to animals, not to humans? So Antibiotic resistance is a huge problem because we have patients that we know that we can give a medication to stop their problem, but if there's antibiotic resistance, the antibiotic doesn't work. And people today some of them are dying because the treatment is not working. Now, compare to those people that were vegetarians, notice that none of them had this antibiotic resistance. Is that good or bad? That's very good, because the day that you need those antibiotics, they will be able to work for you. So let's leave these animals alone, isn't it? We are getting ourselves in really big trouble for changing our relationship and the way that we treat animals. So we're going to have a little